Okay, so I'm going to start off with a question. Why do you think Mr. Harvey chose Susie? Do you think there's any specific reasoning?
I think that he has been like watching her grow up because they're neighbors, and he just figured like he knows her schedule. He would be able to do it easily and hide everything. So I think he's been planning it for a while, and he thought Susie would be easy to do.
I think it was like kind of a coincidence because he made that hole in the ground, that whatever, you know what I mean. And like she just happened to be walking through the cornfield that day when she usually doesn't.
I think he's been doing things to not only her but other women as well, because in the book it said that Susie said that she thought that he had been doing it too, because there's no way that he had like knew exactly what to do.
Because he didn't even seem like nervous at all.
Yeah, and he knew what to do with her body and everything.
Yeah.
They did say there was another girl named Claire in the story, so.
Yeah, and when Susie's dad was talking to Mr. Harvey, he said that that wasn't his wife's name, that he said like a different name. And so I think that maybe he chose Susie because it reminds him of someone that he was like close to.
True.
I definitely think it was connected because I think there's a lot of symbolism in through her hat and then her charm bracelet. Like, I don't think he just like found some random person that was like, I'm keeping the Pennsylvania charm, like that's mine. Like, I feel like there's something connected there that like we haven't been shown yet.
Yeah.
Do you think they'll figure out like it was Mr. Harvey, and how do you think like they will figure it out if they do? Or if you don't think they will? What do you think
I
will
think
happen?
that Susie's dad or mom is going to go back over to his house, and I feel like they're going to find something of hers.
I think people will start putting pieces of the puzzle together, and they'll finally realize that like her dad isn't going crazy when he's saying that it is Mr. Harvey.
I feel like it's going to have a lot to do with her dad and her sister, because her sister is, I wouldn't necessarily say like, she's not like extremely emotional about it, but she's definitely like feeling a different kind of connection than any of her other family is. Like, she's going back and she's going through her room, you know, like that kind of stuff.
She's a different, like she can't look in the mirror.
Yeah.
Because it reminds her of Susie.
So I feel like in order for anything to happen within the family, that they're gonna have to have some kind of closure sometime.
Sorry, I didn't realize this was happening. So Matt, this question that I'm going to ask is kind of along that. I said, why do you think that Mr. Harvey didn't try to get rid of Susie's blood in his garage and instead just said it was an oil stain?
It's an easier way out.
Yeah. Or I think like if they would have tried to cover it up, they'd be able to tell by like the smell of chemicals.
True.
So it would be more.
I
More
think
apparent.
I honestly think that he didn't think it all the way through, like that it would seep out onto the floor. I don't think.
Yeah.
Like, he used a cloth bag.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
don't think he's thinking very straight.
Instead of using like a garbage bag.
And then put her in a safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So along with that question, I'm asking, why is Mr. Harvey so demented?
Well, I think it goes back to his childhood because, like, when his dad like kicked his mom out of the car.
And I like also think since he's been alone for so long, like he's always lived alone in the neighborhood. So
I feel like maybe like he wasn't planning on murdering Susie, but because of like her actions, like she didn't really go along with it. Like when he first like brought her in the dungeon, like he was trying to have normal conversations with her, and I feel like since she was like trying to leave, that he thought he had to make that choice to do something to her.
One of my quotes that I picked from the book was, he forced her out of the car, she won't be coming back, and then I put, Mr. Harvey's father had left his wife for nothing as he drove away. His father shows the same emotion towards people that Mr. Harvey does towards Susie. I believe that Mr. Harvey had seen his father act this way and developed the same actions.
I think that's why maybe the charm bracelet has such a significance, because he has his mom's like jewel or whatever it was, the pendant. And so I think that like I feel like he's definitely killed way more people than we know of.
Yeah.
So I feel like he has to like take that just because he feels like he's losing all those important, maybe necessarily women in his life.
I feel like he's never really had any feelings and everything kind of just went wrong in his life after his mom, and that he doesn't really doesn't care about anybody else's feelings.
So this is more towards like the setup of the book. Why did you think the author like thought it'd be a good idea to write it from Susie's standpoint in heaven?
I think that it gives us like more of a background, because if it wasn't telling Susie's point from heaven,
Then we wouldn't know any of the
Yeah.
story.
yeah, I think it'd be hard to explain like what was actually going on like on Earth.
I think that, I think that like it doesn't just have to be Susie's standpoint in the story, but like obviously in the beginning it does, because nobody knows what's happened to her
Yeah.
yet, but like later on in the story I think that it could be somebody else's standpoint, just because like after they find her or when they're trying to find out what happened, it could go into that too.
And Susie gives out really good details on exactly what happened in her murder, and she also gives like good descriptions of how her family's feeling, because she can like feel how they're like she can see and feel how they're feeling down on earth while she's up in heaven.
Yeah, I feel like it didn't just have to do with the story as well, but because it's like it's something that you don't really hear. Like there's always
Yeah.
books about murders and stuff. There's so many of those, but this one kind of sets it apart from different ones. So maybe it wasn't as deep as that
Yeah.
until.
I feel like it really like draws you into the story, because it kind of can be frustrating to people, because she knows what's happening, she knows where everything's at, but nobody else does. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she can't really like lead them.
She
Yeah.
can't tell them.
Yeah.
Going back on like the Mr. Harvey thing, because I had a question. I said, why do you think the author gives us insight about his childhood? Do you think it's supposed to get us closer to understand Mr. Harvey's motivation?
Can you read that again?
Why do you think the author gives us insight about his childhood? Do you think it's supposed to get us closer to understand Mr. Harvey's motivation to like killing Susan?
I think that it kind of like gives us a reason on why he's doing it, even though it's not like the
Yeah.
right thing to do, but it like gives us a background on why he would do anything like that.
There is no like really a reason to do something like that, but like it gives us a little more information. So
Like other movies and books, it'll like when someone does something like this messed up, usually something happens to them in their like childhood.
there's always something that has triggered the acts.
I'm gonna go on to a different question. Do you guys have anything else to say? Okay. All right. So, you know how Mr. Harvey was put on the suspect list, and then he was taken off.
Yes.
Do you think that he will be put back on the suspect list, and what evidence do you think they would possibly find?
I think that he will for sure be back on the suspect
Yes.
list, because he was a suspect in the first place.
Yeah.
And I think the evidence they're gonna find it's either the blood stain on the ground, or the fact that her dad already thought that he was a suspect.
And like what just happened that I got to, he like saw someone walking with a flashlight in the cornfield that was roped off, and he thought it was Mr. Harvey. So I don't think it's gonna be the police's effort to make him on the suspect list.
I think it
It's gonna
has
be
to be
family's
more
effort.
personal.
I don't think Susie's dad is going to give up on the.
I think the
family's
family's
gonna find it.
I think that some of the evidence, I think it's gonna be Susie's dad that finds it. It's gonna be the blood and or her bracelet.
Yeah, her
charm.
bracelet.
I feel like the blood will be something like last that will be found,
Yeah.
just because it's in his house, unless it's like her sister or like somebody like breaks into his house. But I feel like most likely he will try to keep himself in his house, just because
At least
It's
during the
more
day.
everything
Yeah.
that's happening, like he knows,
It's
like
more
nobody
safe.
else really knows,
Yeah.
but he doesn't want to get caught.
I feel like someone is going to then
filled it with dirt.
No.
Yeah.
I still feel like
I missed that, but,
it's
like,
not gonna be
yeah.
like seamless though.
It's still gonna be kind of like hollow and there's, did he remove the wood, the door to it?
He must have.
But yeah, it's gonna be fresh, soil and,
Yeah.
the corners are obviously. like,
Well, they know
broken.
that like something happened there because Susie's blood was mixed into the dirt,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
they
It's
just don't
kinda
know.
hard to find a hole in the ground.
Yeah, they just don't know exactly if it was there.
Yeah, I mean, it could be like a deer.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if you guys felt imagery during this quote that I found in the book. It said, as she brought prospective buyers through, the realtor said it was an oil stain, but it was me seeping out of the bag Mr. Harvey carried and spilling onto the concrete. Just wondering how you guys felt on that little passage, because when I read that, I could just felt tingly just seeing
Yeah.
it.
I read that in bed and I felt like I couldn't sleep after that.
I feel grossed out because I also have a quote from when he left her in the house. I put, he carried me back into the house where while he went inside to wash up, I waited for him. And I put, that the quote shows the character that Mr. Harvey actually is. He leaves Susie in a sack in his garage, not thinking twice while he cleans himself up. His actions prove to show that he has no emotion to what he just did to a kid.
Yeah, he literally just went up and cleaned himself up and acted like everything was normal.
Yeah, I just went out and lived his life.
Yeah, it creeps me out.
I have the quote from like the first chapter when he was raping her, that Mr. Harvey started to press his lips against mine and were blubbery and wet, and I wanted to scream, but I was too afraid and too exhausted from the fight. What do you guys think about that whole scene? Like,
Yeah.
It's like grosses me out, obviously,
Mhm.
but, like, it's kind of just like disgusting that someone could do that to
Yeah.
somebody knowing that they,
She's innocent.
Yeah.
She hasn't done anything wrong.
she literally hasn't done anything to him, she's just been around and he
It was wrong,
just her
wrong
bad.
timing.
do you guys like how it started off right into the
Yeah.
scene to get to the point?
I like reading, but I have a hard time like getting into books, so that helps
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
Yeah.
get into the book. The only thing I haven't, like, not an issue with, but it's kind of like, we got so much into, like, the murder scene, and now we're learning about everyone.
So
And
you
right-
kinda have to fall back.
Yeah, you have to fall back on
Mhm.
everything. And then, hopefully, the more we keep reading, the more intense it gets.
Yeah, I think it should have, I like that it started off with the murder scene because like Carly said, I have a hard time like getting into books. But I feel like it should have started off like,
Getting to know everyone first.
yeah, and like what led up to it, like her in the school
Mhm.
and like,
I think
That's why I wish that it was in Mr. Harvey's, like, in like somebody else's standpoint, because then we understand why, like, she was chosen.
also like I think if it would have introduced like Ray in the before the whole thing happened, it would show more significance towards him and his character, and all along with Ruth and
Yeah, like Ray, it explains like the, what's the word? Their friendship,
Oh,
how well they got along. But like, it explains it, but it doesn't really give any detail. I mean, not that it's something that really takes away from the book, like it's not a negative thing, but there could be more details added
think-
to it.
yeah, I think that if they would have added, their friendship into the, Ray's and Susie's friendship into the beginning of the book, I think that it would have added, more to the story.
Yeah, because like he got taken, like they questioned him and everything, but like we don't technically, like we know why, but we don't know like the full detail on why he got questioned, like he's one of her friends.
is a little off of the topic of like the plot and everything, but Susie explains like that everyone else goes to different heavens. And, like,
yeah.
why do you think she's staying in this one place? Do you think it's because like she can't go anywhere else till the murder's solved?
Yeah, I think that she has such a connection to wanting her family to figure out like who killed her that she doesn't wanna leave.
I feel like she hasn't completely let go, like it's hard for her and her family, but she's just kind of stuck on a point where she's never gonna be able to talk to her family again, and she's kind of realized that everybody has different heavens, and that like what was that one part where that there was like a different heaven in the beginning of.
I know what you're talking
Yeah,
Just
there was like a
friends
different
having-
heaven, like she didn't get to see her. She said something about how it wasn't like the usual heaven. Like her heaven had everything that she liked in it, and like it smelled like what she liked.
I have a question to stem off of that. I said, why was her heaven set off of her desires? Because it's Franny, I think, tells her that she's like, why is my heaven so empty? And she's like, well, if you want it enough, it'll be there. So I have a question. Why is all their heaven set off of desire when lust and greed are sins?
I feel
That's
like
a good question.
Yeah.
I mean,
I feel like
you never really know. Heaven and sins and all that stuff is like
Well, we
something
don't-
we
something
don't
we
know
don't
until-
know until
yeah.
it happens.
Yeah.
And I mean, if once it does happen, we can't tell you guys. So.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's the way it is now because justice hasn't been served for her or her family because she's mad because like her her family's just left like
Yeah,
not
she
knowing
talks about
what
how she's,
happened.
So upset about her.
Yeah.
family.
And maybe her heaven isn't like the full heaven yet. Maybe she's like up there, but she's
She
not
hasn't
even
fully
reached.
gone through the
Yes.
past.
Yeah.
yet.
Because once maybe like the murder's like
Yeah.
over and like the case is done,
She was
then
talking about the
Like
stages
once,
too.
once
Yeah.
like justice is served,
she'll
Her
actually.
family
she'll
starts
move
to-
on.
I feel like
that
she'll
the
like
whole heaven
just
is-
let go and kind of be like not happy, but
She'll like let
better.
all of her grief.
Yes,
out.
Yeah.
and realize she will see her family again one day.
Yeah, she was talking about how like there's the stages like when she first passed away, she was running through the cornfield, she touched Ruth on the face, like
Yeah.
that was one of the first stages. And the second stage she like had no idea what was going on and then she met all the people and now she's actually getting things into her heaven. And she's like reflecting into her own family. Like she talked about she revealed herself in every piece of glass when her dad was like
Throwing the.
yeah, he was breaking the bottles.
Yeah.
Like she's still connecting to the family, but she can't make it apparent.
I feel like she's like kind of lonely because it's like her own heaven. Like she's seen people and people have like passed through, I guess. But I feel like she's lonely because at the same time she said something about how she can see everybody just like coming, like everybody that died, like she can just see them going up to heaven, but she doesn't get to really see a lot of people. She's kind of just alone. I mean, she sees people, but
I
she's
think
more alone.
also like even though she's in heaven and she's the one that died, she still goes through the grieving process. And like part of that was when like her mentor, her and Franny's mentor, like she acted as if it was her mom because she missed her mom. And I just think like she's getting over those grieving processes in a different way.
Yeah, I feel like she's not even like really upset on like how she got murdered or like that she was murdered. I think it's more just like her family was left without her.
Yeah, and going along with that, how do you guys think that Lindsay's feeling that she has to grow up without her, well, Lindsay and Buckley?
Yeah.
Going throughout their life without their older sister.
I feel like Lindsay is kind of just like left alone because Buckley doesn't understand what's
Yeah.
happening. Like he wasn't ever really at the house. He stayed at his friend's house.
I mean, he knows, but he
He
doesn't
doesn't
understand
understand
the
the
Yeah.
concept.
And that's I think obviously we talked about Lindsay like not being able to look in the mirror and like trying to like do those things to be like her sister, to be better. Since they're gonna have a hard time, and obviously the father's having a hard time. I've noticed like a disconnect through her mom. Like, why is her mom so distant to it?
Yeah, I have a question. I said after Susie's death, how did it affect her family? So it kind of goes hand in
Yeah.
hand.
Like the mom was just being so distant.
I think like the connection between the mom and daughter is so strong that like it's just a lot harder for her to get over it, and she doesn't necessarily like her dad is bringing anger into it.
Everyone grieves differently
Yeah.
too,
Yeah.
so.
Like her dad had to dump out the scotch because he knew that that's what it would lead to if he didn't get rid of it.
And I have another thing. It says Ocean Eyes, my father called her when he wanted one of the chocolate-covered cherries she kept hidden in the liquor cabinet as her private treat. And now I understood the name. I had thought it was because they were blue, but now I saw it was because they were bottomless in a way I found frightening. I had an instinct then, not developed in thought, and that was that. So it kind of shows like how she's finally able to see her mom in a way she never saw her. Like she always saw her mom as like always doing everything for the
Yeah.
kids, and now she's seeing her like she's seeing the way she actually is, and she's like not there.
I
She's
feel
not
like
present.
she feels bad. I feel like she might like take the blame for this because like her family's pretty much falling apart, and Lindsay and Buckley don't really get the like love that she used to get, like they all used to get before she died.
It said like Buckley is like saw Susie as like a ghost or spirit. Do you think like he isn't comprehending everything fully because he still can see?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
It is also like unproven fact, but there is something that
Yeah.
babies and like little toddlers can actually see, like spirits and stuff.
I think that it helps him, well, like, he doesn't know that she's dead, so I think that it helps him not become detached from the family because he thinks that she's still there.
Yeah, kids, the connection you just made, a lot of people, like, I don't necessarily know what I believe in that, but a lot of people will say that kids have an easier time connecting with things like that because they're not so pushed away from the idea that it's such a conspiracy to believe in that kind of stuff. And that's why they say that animals like dogs, they can tell.
Yeah.
Or cats too.
This is also something cool that I thought because Susie literally wants to just speak to her sister. So in heaven she's saying, take deep breaths and hold them. Try to stay still for longer and longer periods of time. Make yourself small and like a stone. Curl the edges of yourself up and fold them under where no one can see. Because when Lindsay was like upset in her room, that's all she wanted to say to her sister. Because she can't physically say it to her.
I feel like a connection that we pretty much all can make. In the beginning of the book, like the first page I think, it said something about, I don't have the exact quote, I don't look for it either, but it said something about how it was like, it was in that time where nobody thought anything like this would happen to anybody.
Is that like the only
And,
things,
like-
only these things happen in the movies?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like we all can make this connection because like nothing's ever really happened to, obviously nothing's
Like
happened to
around.
us like that or
Mhm.
really around here besides that one chick, but you know who I'm talking about?
The runner.
Yeah, that girl. But like we,
The girl that was like Dwayne or something.
yeah,
She got
kidnapped by,
killed.
by,
It was a big deal because the guy that killed her was like undocumented or something.
yeah, he was from like.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so it's like that, like we hear things about it, like, but it's not really,
It's never hit
it's
home.
not
It's not
around
personal.
us, yeah, it's not personal, and I feel like we all can make that connection that it's not gonna happen to us
Yeah.
until it happens to like
It's
us
like-
or it's like personal.
It's like in 4th grade when everybody, like we have the fire safety drills and we're like, our house is never gonna burn down, and then Wyatt Sherman's house burned down, and we're all like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
like, really
I used to be
bad.
best friends with